exciting. There was no resistance to this class.
No.
There was none whatsoever to it happening. So, we're talking about love. I need to hear something about love right about now. We're going to be on page 186 in the course of love. And we're going to start out with paragraph 20.36 on page 186 if you have the book. And I'm going to start out with the sentence that says, bitterness and uncertainty are replaced by hope.
That's good, right?
That's a good place to start.
That's
Bitterness and uncertainty is replaced by hope.
Wow.
Bitterness and uncertainty is replaced by hope.
That.
Hope is the condition of the initiate, the new to the realization of having a home within the embrace. It is the response that says to all you have just read, if only it were true, if only it could be true, if only this stuff was true, if only it could be true. Notice the complete change in this, if only for those we have spoken of earlier. The if onlys of fear, if you put half as much faith in those if onlys, if it was only true, as you have it in if onlys of fear, all the certainty I have spoken of will be yours.
Wow.
Knowing what you do is a present moment knowing. It is not about plans. It is not about plans. It is not about plans. It's not about plans. It's not about plans. It's not about plans.
See, it's not about plans.
It's not about plans. It's not about plans. It's not about plans. It's about a present moment knowing. It is not about plans. Did I say it's not about plans? It's okay. All right. All right. It's about what? Moment by moment knowing exactly who you are and acting out of that loving identity of knowing exactly who you are. And it's also about knowing that as you do so, act out of who you are, acting out of that loving identity, so are you in accord and enjoying the full cooperation of the entire universe. So therefore, it sounds like it's telling us that if you really want the full cooperation of the entire universe, the rule number 1 is you have to know exactly who you are, and rule number 2, you have to act out of that loving identity of who you are. Hope is a manner of acting as if the best possible outcome you can imagine could truly occur. So if you're using hope, you're acting as if the best possible outcome you can imagine could truly occur. And you would also ask yourself, how could the best possible outcome I could imagine possibly occur? So put it in a question. How could the best possible outcome that I could imagine, how could that truly occur? How could that truly occur? Hope is a willingness to accept love and the grace and the cooperation that flows from love. Hope is a willingness to accept love and the grace and the cooperation that flow from love. Hope is a willingness to ask for help. Hope is a willingness to ask for help, believing that the help will come. So I'm willing to ask for help. I'm willing to believe that the help will come. I'm willing to ask for help. I have my favorite prayer to God is simply, help me, God. Very simple, very direct, very to the point. Help me, God. Help me, God. And then be willing to believe that the help is going to come. Hope is the reason and the outcome for which we pray. Hope acknowledges the kindliness of the universe and has no use for things. Hope acknowledges the kindliness of the universe and has no use for things. The inanimate as well as the animate is called upon, dependent upon for service. Your car has consciousness. Everything has consciousness. Even if it looks like it's an inanimate object, it has consciousness. Anybody that has computers know that that's true. Anybody with a computer knows that it is true, that it is alive. And it always doesn't work when you're in a hurry and when you need it the most.
Help me, God.
That's when it tends to, that's when mine tends. If I'm in a hurry and it's like I need it quick, that's when it usually will be stubborn. So your computer is an inanimate object. And also you'll notice that depending on your level of consciousness and how much conflict you feel on the inside, you'll notice that that seems to correspond with car trouble. You know, one of the things that you notice sometimes is that as you shift consciousness and you make a change in your vibration and you we are energy, that sometimes it will seem to affect mechanical things and electronic things around you. So one of the things you'll notice if you're shifting in consciousness is that sometimes you'll find yourself having challenges with your appliances and with electrical stuff and with mechanical stuff. Has anybody else noticed that when you go through a shift, it happens.
Just before this, I was syncing my iPad or whatever, and when I plug it in, my computer would go out.
Your whole computer would go out.
So you know what I did?
What?
I hit restart. I asked for a new beginning.
Right. You know, one thing that's really cool that it's amazing how many problems that you have with the computer will straighten out if you will just reboot it. If you just cut it off and cut it back on, most of the problems that you have with the computer will correct themselves. I always have to remember that. Is that when I'm tempted to start fiddling with the computer, the first thing I need to do is reboot it. So I also feel like that's what I'm doing in my life right now. I feel like I'm going through a major reboot. And the password is God. The password is
That's
true.
Good.
Yes, it is.
I got a major reboot going on right now.
Yeah.
And lately I've been a little concerned about my hard drive, but that's a whole nother that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah, that's another class.
That's another class. All use is replaced with service, and appreciation replaces the callousness with which use once occurred. All use is replaced with service, and appreciation replaces the callousness with which use once occurred. All service is cooperative. It depends on a belief in mutuality. All fear that what is good for one may not be good for the whole is replaced by an understanding that each one is worthy of his or her desires. You are worthy of your desires, and your desires are the elixir that makes things happen. Without a really passionate desire, it's very difficult to create and to accomplish things. There are a lot of teachings that say desire is the problem, but the Course of Love doesn't teach that desire is the problem. I don't believe desire is the problem. I think everything that I've ever accomplished in my life that I saw, that I felt good about or felt like I really accomplished something, it came out of my desire. It didn't come. People don't say, I have no desire and let's get married. You know, I have no desire, but I'm getting ready to move out of town. You know, it's like it's that desire that motivates you to make a move. So desire is a beautiful thing. Desire is a powerful thing. Do not put down desires. What I would advise you, to follow the energy and go in the direction of your desire. And you know whether or not you're desiring something. In a lot of cases, you know whether or not you're desiring something that you feel guilty about, or you're desiring something that you feel innocent about. So if you have a desire and you know you feel guilty about the desire, or you feel afraid about that desire, then you know that you need to ask for a new perception of that desire and ask whether or not that's a desire that you should move on. So, but desire is a good thing. Desire is a powerful thing. Desire is a good thing, and you're worthy of your desires. The things that you desire, you're worthy of that desire. I love that. It says eachness replaces thingness, but not oneness. All fear that what one gets means that less is available for another is replaced with an understanding of abundance. So as you move into a higher level of consciousness, you let go of that idea that because you have love, or because you have prosperity, or because you have abundance, or because you have anything you want, that means that it's unavailable to someone else. He says that's one of the biggest misperceptions that we have in this plane, is that if I have something, that means somebody else doesn't have that thing. That's not the way the laws of abundance work. It works just the opposite, that the more you allow yourself to receive, the more there is for everyone else to receive. I like that a lot better.
Yeah,
you know,
not taking.
That if you're receiving. We were created by an abundant Creator. There's not a lack in anything. It's like even on this level, you could look at. I noticed all the time. I was over at a friend's house and they had so many peaches on the tree that the tree cracked. And they literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I was thinking about how that one tree produced hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of peaches, right? And then each peach had a peach seed that could produce another peach tree. So it's really obvious that the universe is based on the idea of abundance and more than enough, and that the idea of lack is just an idea that we're making up based on the things that we've learned and the things that we've been taught. Even in this world, you'll notice that everything seems to be, in nature, is about more and more than enough and more abundance. So the more you have, the more there is for everyone else to have. I remember going to a dinner at this all-you-can-eat Italian restaurant that was unbelievable. I can't think of the name of it. It was way out north somewhere.
Cinzetti's.
Maybe that's what it was, but it was just amazing. I mean, I'd never seen that much food in one place in my life. And we were all sitting at the table eating, and what I noticed was that when there was an abundance, when there was more than enough, one of the main things that was happening at the table was everybody was sharing with everybody else. You ought to taste this, you ought to taste this, you ought to have that. Check this out over here. So sharing comes naturally when you have abundance. Mm-hmm. So the reason why people don't share is because they don't believe that they have abundance. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. Nobody would have to force you to share if you felt like you could never lack. You know, so a lot of things that we try to force ourselves to do, if we allowed the laws of the universe to work, we would just normally do that anyway. Yeah. You know, it's not hard to forgive if you're happy. If your life is working and things are going great in your perception and you feel like things are moving and expanding and growing, you tend not to want to hold a grievance. So the best way to forgive and forget something is to allow yourself to have happiness now, to be in peace now. Then it's no problem letting something go because you don't feel like there's any joy missing in your life right now. So I like it like that. Or when you hear stuff like you need to love everybody. It's good to be kind and loving to everybody. Well, if you surrounded yourself as much as you could with people that you appreciated and people that you loved and you knew loved you, that wouldn't be a strain. It's only with the people that you are afraid of with or you feel separate from that it's hard to give that kindness and give that love. So I try to stack the odds in my favor by spending my time as much as I can with people that I feel peace with and that I enjoy. Yeah. Because most of my encounters, especially at a social level, they're always pretty much your choice. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. I mean, you might have to go to a job and you may not care for your coworkers, which is really not caring for your perception of your coworkers. But yeah, but when you leave the job, don't go hang out with somebody else you don't like. You know what I'm saying? It's like in the evening, then go socialize with someone or do something that you feel good about. Why? Because then it's easy to be kind, it's easy to be loving, it's easy to share, it's easy to be affectionate, it's easy to be forgiving. Yeah. It's the truth is simple. Like the Course always teaches, the truth is simple. Complication is of the ego. Mm-hmm. Complication is of the fearful mind. Complication is of the separate mind. So it says, receiving replaces all notions of taking or getting. So when you get up in the morning, it's not about taking anything or getting anything. It's about going out into your world saying, how much would I allow myself to receive today? How much would I allow into my experience today? How much abundance, how much joy, how many cool relationships would I allow? So as you wake up in consciousness, you get away from the idea of taking, you get away from the idea of getting, and you are more into the idea of what? Receiving. And it describes receiving as accepting. And I love that. To receive means to accept. A person's capacity to receive is a person's capacity to accept. So if you try to compliment someone or say something wonderful to someone and they deflect it, then you know you're not in the presence of a very good receiver. And I know you've seen that before, where you try to compliment somebody or tell them what you appreciate about them or what they do wonderful for you in your life, and they're so busy telling you that they don't deserve it or it's not true or whatever, that they don't realize that they're saying, don't acknowledge me, I don't want appreciation. And then when they don't get it, they're upset. They'll be the exact same person that's complaining that people don't appreciate them will usually be the exact same person that deflects a compliment and doesn't accept a compliment, and they don't see the connection at all. So they're upset that you won't give them the compliment that they won't accept. Interesting, isn't it? They're upset because you won't give them the compliment they won't accept. You know, photography is one of my hobbies, and I like to take pictures of people. And I learned a long time ago that every time you take a picture of a female, you're really taking a chance.
What have you been receiving?
Of course, they've been able to receive that photograph is one of the hardest things because it can be the most gorgeous photograph in the world. They go straight to the pimple that they think they see hidden over behind their neck. You know, it's like it's so difficult. I see it's so difficult for people to look at a photograph of themselves and just say, wow, that's beautiful. And it can be the most beautiful photograph, you know, because our ego eyes are always looking for what's missing, what's lacking, what's not enough, you know. And I definitely see myself do that a lot in my own experience also, you know. Many times I walk to my apartment and look in the mirror and go, who is this? Who is that? Get out of here. Who are you? What's your name? You know, because in my head, you know, I'm still seeing myself in the way I looked 30 years ago or something. You know what I'm saying? It's really weird. You go, call the police. Who is that guy?
Who's that black man?
Who's that black man in my apartment? But then the weird part about it is that I've actually heard more compliments than I heard 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's really weird. It's like, wow, you know, I'm so thankful for people who can't see well. But, that's one of the advantages of getting older. Everybody can't see well. All your friends, none of y'all can see well. But you know, but the truth is, if you really love a person and you really feel connected to a person, and you really feel the energy, they look beautiful to you. I don't care what they look like. That's what I've noticed. Is that people look beautiful or ugly depending on how I'm feeling and how they seem to be feeling in the moment themselves. You know, so that's a great way of seeing that your perception affects your whole reality. It says there are no limits. It says there are no limits to love, and there are no limits to anything that flows from love. So if it's flowing from love, it will not be limited. If it's flowing from love, you can always tell when a person is shifted from love to fear. Because don't you see that when they've switched to fear, all of a sudden the flow is limited. Something is now, what used to be freely given is now very limited. And when people are afraid of you, they contract. And when they contract, they are proud at how much love they don't give you. And they'll call it establishing boundaries. So establishing boundaries are good in some situations, but it's real interesting to find out, is this really a boundary or is this really a grievance? Are you calling a boundary just you don't want to love anymore? So you feel afraid. And so now you got this big area around you. The problem with it is, sure, nothing can get in, but nothing can get out either, and vice versa.
Wow.
You know, the screen that keeps the mosquito out is the same screen that'll keep the butterfly out. You know,
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? It's like while you busy with your barrier, nothing gets through.
The screen that what?
The screen that would keep a mosquito out is the same screen that would keep a lovely butterfly out.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you kind of like need to check yourself out to see if you got this screen up right now. And you're innocent if you do. And if you do have what you consider to be a fearful emotion or a negative emotion or anything like that, try to look at it with a sense of innocence and wonder and curiosity. You're like, oh God, that was the best losing of my temper I've ever seen. I don't know when I've lost my temper that good before. Wow, that was a good creation. When you can get to that point, you know you're getting there. This is my very best depression. This depression is a depression that was just, it was like you got to do your thing so good that it's unlike anything that you've ever seen before. You know, I was looking at this animated picture called Mega Man. And so funny, and the villain in the movie, he was ready to really do more villain than he could ever do in his whole life. And so when he was ready to do the best villain that he can possibly think of, he said he had to get his best villain cape. You know, they had worked on for years, and it was called the Black Mambo. And when he put it on, it was so funny. It was like, that's what we do, though. It's like when we get ready to do our thing, you do it good. He's getting ready to do evil better than evil has ever been done. You know, and so it's important that whatever you're gonna do, you know, try to come out of the best that you
helps,
can do.
though, when you're, you know, because I've kind of been in a little bit of this.
Really?
Huh? But that helps, because I was just telling her, this is the worst I've ever been.
Right.
When we were walking in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but given it that perspective,
I noticed.
kind of like it.
Yeah, it's like, just go. You know, remember innocence and a sense of wonder. Like, have you ever just screwed up so bad that you were just at a sense of wonder? You were like, you were like, oh, even for me, this is and you can tell when you really done the best one, because if it's the best screw up that you think you've ever done, it will probably trigger laughter. You know, it would just get to the point that it's just ridiculous. You just go, oh, this is too bad. I just have to laugh at this. I just done it so good. I have to laugh this time. Laugh it away, laugh it away, laugh it away, laugh it away. Look at it with a sense of wonder and innocence. So what one benefits from, everyone benefits from. If you allow yourself to benefit, everyone benefits. So, what was one of the statements that leaked out for any of you out of that, or any thoughts that it triggered that you care to share? Would be great.
Kind of like, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I really liked when you said, you know, you can really notice how when somebody switches to fear that the flow is limited, the flow of love, because that is so true.
Oh yeah.
That is so absolutely 100% accurate for me. So.
Me too.
It really stood out for me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. All of us are seeking love, but it's the thing that we're most afraid of. So when it shows up, many times the response is just the opposite from what we thought the response was going to be. That it would bring up resistance and fear, where we thought we would just be so willing. You know, or you have an intense joining with someone, and then right after that you'll come up with something to create separation because you became afraid of the intensity of the connection.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Say that one more time, please.
Yeah. Sometimes the more intense the connection, the more the defense against it will come up later.
Sure.
Because it threatened your ego. It threatened every part of you that believed that love couldn't happen for you. Especially if you've been convincing yourself that it can't happen the way you want it to happen. And all of a sudden it does seem to show up. Well, the part of you that's been programmed to believe it can't happen goes into complete panic. And it tries to do everything that it can to show you that that's an illusion. It's not real. Okay? So don't be surprised if behind some experience of intense joining that there's an experience of intense separation. And if you catch it, you won't let it fool you. You know, you can, okay. I think that's the whole reason why we're studying this stuff. It's sort of like Spirit is trying to let us know the reactions and reactions and actions that are going to happen as a result of studying this, so that when it happens, we won't be so freaked out and we'll know how to deal with it. It's like someone telling you about, you know, if you drive on I-70 and you get up there to the Eisenhower Tunnel, you know, you might have a little trouble if it's a snowstorm. So you kind of prepare before you get there not to freak out. And I think that's what these books do. All of them try to tell us what's going to happen as we're trying to evolve, so that we won't be fooled by it and won't freak out when it happens. But many times we don't want to take the time to learn and remember what we're being taught about the journey.
Well, plus,
you know,
somehow I didn't hear it till you moved here. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, because I'd been doing this a while before you moved here, but nobody put it quite like you did.
Well, that's what's so great about the truth
coming. Which I call simple terms.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah.
I'm sorry, you're not simple, but
I think being simple is the greatest compliment that someone could pay me.
Yeah.
Complexity is what you create when you are afraid to do something and you need an excuse not to. Then you can tell yourself, it's so complex, I can't figure out what to do. So to me, complexity is just the smoke screen to hide the simplicity of the answer, because if the answer is simple, you don't have any excuse for not doing it. If it's complicated, then you got so many great excuses for why you can't do it. You know, the Course in Miracles talks about that when all of a sudden you're studying the truth or you're trying to achieve something and all you see is contradictions and paradoxes, and it seems to make sense from this point of view, but then it doesn't make sense from this point of view. He says you become afraid of the goal. You've become afraid of the thing that you are seeking. And as soon as you become afraid of it, then you see obstacles and contradictions and paradoxes. So instead of trying to spend my time getting past the contradictions and the paradoxes and trying to understand it, I try to take my attention and focus it back on the goal again, and how can I let go of fear of achieving it. Because when you're not afraid is when it simplifies itself and takes care of itself. I was thinking about the thing that God gave me as such a powerful teaching was going over to London and having this incredible opportunity to share and teach. And then at the same time realizing that it wasn't me promoting myself that got me there, even though I wanted to have that experience. What got me there was someone seeing a picture of me and saying that they saw a light in me. And as a result of the light they saw in the picture, they invited me over and brought me over. That doesn't have anything to do with me self-promoting. But it was something I wanted to experience. And so the experience came to me in a simple way, because it was time for me to have that experience. You know what I mean? It's like, then I met a guy who was there who had been on Oprah a couple of times. It was one of the other speakers, and he was saying that they called him because of the book he had written, and somehow somebody heard about it and mentioned it to somebody and mentioned it to somebody. Somehow or another he ended up on the Oprah show, and she wanted to keep talking past the time that they were supposed to stop. Again, I know people who've sent I don't know how many emails and letters and tapes and this and that to try to get on Oprah. Who got on Oprah? The guy that wasn't trying to get on Oprah. It happened because at some level he was ready for that to happen, and he was open to that happening. So a way for it to happen happened. And then I always think about that. Now, does that mean that you wouldn't do a promotion, or does that mean you wouldn't advertise? No, just realize none, according to the truth, none of those things are actually what's creating the outcome. They're just symbolic of your willingness to accept. There's something you're doing to show you're willing to accept the business or the relationship or the whatever. So when you go, so I always try to remember that I'm just doing something to cool my ego out. That's all. I'm making all my plans to cool my ego out. I'm advertising to cool my ego out. I'm going to school to cool my ego out. I'm making the plan so that my ego will not be freaking out. But when I'm conscious, I know that what's really happening is happening by the grace and the will of God. That it doesn't have anything to do with the stuff that my ego self, my little separate self, is doing. But my ego is a distraction if I don't give it something to do. And it's the part of me that thinks it needs to be in control of something. And it's the part of me that actually thinks it is in control of something. So you need to go ahead and humor it. Like the Course says, you don't try to humble it. You don't try to control your ego. You don't try to humble your ego. You don't try to attack your ego. The easiest way to transcend your ego is to give it what it wants. Because happiness and joy is the undoing of the ego, which is the undoing of fear. So every time you allow yourself to be joyful, that is the undoing of the ego. So people always say, that is the undoing of fear. That is the undoing of the separation. So it's really cool to know that every time I'm allowing myself to receive and to enjoy and to share, that is the undoing of my fear. That is the undoing of my separation. Anybody else? Any thoughts about anything we've said that kind of stood out for them? Because what stands out for you is what stands out for the rest of us.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that has been slow to come for me, but it's coming rapidly now, more rapidly, is the embracing my creations. whether they happen to be of fear or of love. It's all creation. It's all connected.
That's a biggie.
It's huge, the responsibility in that, you know, and really kind of getting more of the feeling of innocence out of that. You know, I couldn't really figure out what innocence was until recently. I didn't get the feeling of it. You know, and I hear what you're saying about attracting these things into your life with thoughts and emotions that go with them. You know, seems to be how it works.
I don't care. It's one thing I noticed. I don't care how many spiritual, metaphysical books you study. It seems like the core thread of truth that goes through all of them is that you are the one that's somehow creating your experience, and that your experience is coming from you. That's the thing I've noticed. You know, over and over again. You know, according to your faith, according to the way you think, according to the way you feel. I mean, it's like I was thinking the other day. How many times do I have to hear that before I actually give myself the freedom and the power of that? Just that one little statement. I am the creator of my experience. No one is doing anything to me. I am responsible for what I see. Just that, you know, that one little idea of being a creator instead of a victim is the key to the new world of joy that all of us want. But the problem is that we have some areas that we want to see that as true in, and then we have others that we don't want to see it as true in. And that's what short-circuits the whole thing. I'm responsible for what I see, love or fear. That's what it means by that. I'm responsible for what I see doesn't mean you're responsible for what I'm going through in my relationship, and you're responsible for what all your friends are going through, and you're responsible. That's not what it means when it says you are responsible for what you see. It has no condemnation, it has no blame. It means you are responsible for how you are seeing. That's what it means. Yeah.
I think the thing that, one of the things I think you're alluding to, or that I'm getting from this, is this whole feeling of specialness. You know, I have a boss, I have kids, I tend to kind of get off track with some of those things, you know, but I'm still responsible.
I'm responsible for
it's not my boss that's doing it.
What I remember you 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years in January that you came to Fort Collins. So I think it's been 2 years, but you said something that stuck with me forever. That's going to be with me. Be responsible. Be 100% responsible for your own experience.
Right. Yeah, because even if people can't reach that level where they can accept that everything they see is actually being created by them. I'm not talking about the little self that thinks it's human out here trying to make it. I mean your true identity. There are a few people that could argue with you that they are not truly responsible for how they see things and how they are experiencing their experience. That's why I like to always start there. You know, I am responsible for how I am experiencing my experience. Now, you know, I am responsible for whether I'm seeing peace right now or love right now, feeling peace right now. I don't care what's going on. You know, you see that in the hospital. You could come in there with your reels protruding out of your body, and the nurse and the doctor will remain calm. That's one of the things when I like to learn a lot of spiritual lessons through Gray's Anatomy. And one of the things that I noticed is that, which trips me out, they'll be doing like brain surgery and talking about what they had for dinner last night. They'll be like doing brain surgery and talking about, well, you know, I'm trying to work through this relationship thing, you know, and you know, and the person's spouse or the parent is out there freaking out, but they are very calm and, you know, very detached, which allows them to get the job done because they're not freaking out. But they do freak out when it's someone they are special to. And that's the other thing I notice all the time. You know, if it's one of their friends or relatives or mates, then they're just like the people in the waiting room. You know, so whenever I watch people being so calm, cool, and collected, like they're so spiritually evolved, and I always tell them, it's easy for you to be spiritually evolved about my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy for you to take a spiritual, detached perspective of my sister making a transition in the fire. And wonder where I can't see that as, it's just, she wasn't her body, and He's just a spiritual being. Of course, that's true. But the degree of specialness is the degree of how much your emotions and feelings and stuff get involved. You know, that's why the most special love that you can have is also the flip side of that is the most special hate you can have. Like that song said when I was growing up, there's a thin line between love and hate. Have you seen it? Have you ever experienced it? The same person you worshipped and adored would be the same person that you're feeling hate and anger toward. It's because they're so special that you're so angry. You know, so it's interesting to see how it's all my perception. Anybody else?
Well,
yeah.
Well, Earl, like, I'm feeling resistance around this, and like I even have like this like gnawing feeling at the pit of my heart here because, like, I'm gonna be honest, you know, like for me it's hard for me to accept that, you know, I create my that I'm responsible, or that okay, I create my experience. Like I'm all right with the positive stuff, but the negative stuff I'm not all right with because I still confuse that with feeling guilty and sinful and bad. Even though I know up here, because I've heard a lot here, that I'm innocent, but I still don't believe here.
Well, you didn't come here believing that you were guilty and sinful necessarily, in my perception too. The emotional reactions that you're having is based on ideas and beliefs that you have been taught, that you accepted as true. And when you accepted them as true, then you began to have emotional reactions and responses to it. But it all started with a thought. It all started with whether you was a kid. Like when I remember being a kid and going to church and being told that I was born in sin and that Jesus died for my sins and that practically everything I enjoyed was a sin. No, everything I enjoyed was a sin.
Yeah,
that's true today, as a matter of fact. Thank God I'm in the teaching that tells me I'm innocent, you know what I'm saying? I used to always joke with people and say, well, yeah, I'm going to hell, but that's all right. That's where all my friends gonna be. So it's good to go. I'm good to go. You know, I'm not really that big on harp music anyway. Cause it was like when I would hear the traditional ideas of heaven, it would be like,
Yeah.
Jesus, that sounds boring. You know, and then what kind of an egotistical God needs everybody to be sitting around worshiping him and adoring him all the time? That sounds like what I want. You know? That sounds like something we projected on God that sounds mighty human. Because if we be honest with ourselves, that's the way we are.
Yeah.
You know, we're the ones that want people praising us and telling us how wonderful we are all the time and making us the focus and the center. So I always felt like, you know, man made God in his image instead of the other way around. It's like when I would hear about the characteristics of God, it would sound like a dysfunctional person. You know, jealous, possessive, angry, killing off all his kids if they didn't do anything. I just flood the whole planet except for a few of y'all. That just didn't sound loving to me. I'm sorry. It just did not make, it's like, you know, you wear your dress too short, you burn in hell for an eternity. Sounded extreme to me. And so I was like going, and I was like looking at these adults, and I was, as a kid, and I was going, are you all out of your mind? And I'm still like that. I still wonder what happened to what my mother used to call common sense. It's like, you know, that's not book learning. Common sense isn't book. So the Course in Miracles says the second coming of Christ is the return of your sins. I thought that was a perfect definition of the second coming of Christ. See, when you have some sense again, that's the second coming of Christ. You know, because that isn't love what you're hearing. You're hearing guilt, and you're hearing attack, and you're hearing a shame, and you're hearing, you know, all those things. So what I'm saying, Chris, is that if that's what you've been programmed with, and everybody around you sort of supports that idea, and your world supports that idea because it's your core belief, then it makes perfect sense to me that right now what we're talking about will be just an idea that's being introduced to you that you don't have that same type of emotional belief and response yet. That's why you keep giving it to yourself over and over and over again. That's why you keep giving it to yourself in spite of how you're feeling about yourself. I feel guilty and I'm going to study. I feel guilty and I'm going to do my workbook lesson. I feel guilty and I'm going to read. For one thing, what I've noticed is that you can't read the truth and not feel better. You can't do it. You can't sit down and listen to any of this stuff and read it. If it's just that much better, you'll feel better. So I always can tell whether or not I want to feel better or whether I want to punish myself by how quickly I go to God, how quickly I go to the truth. How quickly I go to the truth is how quickly I can tell whether or not I want to suffer. You know, what was the other part you were
I was
going
just going to say that someone just told me this weekend, I was at a workshop, and she said, fear, translation, false existence appearing real. I thought, wow.
Yeah.
And ego, earth guides only.
Earth guides only. And I've heard fear being false evidence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
real.
did I say false experience? I meant false evidence. False evidence.
Yeah.
But I put experience in there too, because
Yeah, same thing. It's all good. It's all start with an
false
E.
evidence.
It'll work. It'll work.
Yeah. She did say false evidence appearing real, and I kept saying that means experience too.
Yeah, that's what I love about the thing now that we all have. You know, we can have GPSs on our phones and everything.
I know.
And I was thinking about that because it to me it reflects the relationship that I need to have with my guidance. You know, that it knows how to get there, even if I don't know how to get there. And if I would be willing to not argue with it in most cases, I mean, it's like anything else mechanical. Sometimes there's a flaw. Well, you kind of get the drift of what I'm saying, though. You know, when I get in my car and someone says to me, I live at such and such an address, I don't even have to type it in anymore. I can just say it to my phone. You know, take me to blank, blank, blank address. And then it says, okay, and God, you're a cool dude, and you know, you're going to be damn, how you get so cute. But anyway.
Okay, a friend of mine told me that he was in another city, and he said that he was going along, and he put on his GPS thing or whatever, and it said, don't go this way, you need to detour because there's a lot of bad traffic going on this, and he was like, just like, how does this work?
Well, yeah, that's the way they are. You know, I can look at mine and it'll show you through red, green, or yellow whether or not you're getting ready to go into an area that's really messed up right now or not. And I call it the Holy Spirit. For me, is my God positioning system. That's my GPS. You know, how can and this thing, and it's being directed from something that's way above, which is interesting. I mean, the symbology behind it is very interesting. It's it's the higher perspective, and that's what these teachings are giving us. You know, we're the one that's on the street that can't see 5 blocks ahead. You know, and this perspective is the perspective above all of it. But it's a matter of, do I want to suffer or do I want to feel good? Really, it's all on me. That's what I'm beginning to realize. You know.
So Earl, then, so even like, cause like I've had a situation like where like, you know, last week I went into a depression, and like for like 2 days straight I just stayed in bed.
Could I share something with you that I love to tell people after working with this over 30 years? Okay, listen to this. Stop getting upset about getting upset. Stop feeling depressed about feeling depression. You are not, I repeat, you are not going to feel peace all the time on the way to learning how to feel peace all the time. If I could say, if I could give one message to people after teaching all these years, because I hear that over and over again, it's like you want to learn how to play saxophone, and you go to one lesson, and then you're mad because you can't be in the symphony orchestra of Denver. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That's the same with it. Just like it would take you time to learn how to play a saxophone, and you're going to hit some wrong notes before you can play that song. You are not going to go to enlightenment and get over a lifetime's worth of programming in a month, or 2 months, or even 3 months, or maybe even 10 years. Yeah. So how much fun this journey is is going to be in direct relationship to how you can look at your ego in innocence and wonder and say, okay, this is the way I feel right now. It's okay for me to feel the way I feel right now, and I'm going to continue to give myself the thoughts, beliefs, the attitudes, the teachings, the guidance that will get me through it into a level of peace. But don't think for 1 second that you're going to feel good all day, every day, as long as you have any sense of separation from God, or any belief in guilt, or any belief in sin, or think you just a separate Chris out here walking around by herself. Just that idea that you're a separate Chris is going to be an idea that generates fear from time to time. Mm-hmm. So it's really not about looking for a day that you don't feel any kind of conflict. It's more about always recognizing that you're not alone, and all your feelings are natural, and all the things that you feel or what people feel when they're in the process of learning how to let go of their guilt and fear. You will one day be enlightened. You will one day not have any fear and only know love. And that's guaranteed by God. But in the meantime, you're going to hit a few bad notes on the saxophone called Chris every now and then because you're just learning how to play the innocent sax. You've spent 30 years playing guilty sax, so you can do guilty sax real good. You know what I'm saying? I know my way around guilt. I know how to go into fear. I know how to go into anger. So the biggest break that the Course in Miracles and the Course of Love gave me was to realize that that was just my call for love. That is just my cry for healing. That's just my call to God. So when you start to reinterpret those feelings, then those feelings will begin to dissipate. If you don't condemn yourself for those feelings will dissipate. But when you condemn yourself, like, oh my God, today I felt really, really depressed, and that's a self-condemnation, you're actually feeding the depression. Mm-hmm. But if you go, I felt really, really depressed today. Ah, wow. I felt depressed today. And then one day you'll realize, oh, I'm feeling depressed because of the way I am seeing things. I'm feeling depressed because of what I'm telling myself right now. That the depression isn't just happening to me, it's actually happening because of my interpretation of some situation right now. It's coming from the way I'm looking at my life in this moment, or looking at a situation in this moment. It isn't there because it has an independent existence on its own. Depression isn't like a live entity walking around. It's like the devil. It's like the devil is nothing but a physical embodiment of evil that has a will of its own. What that does is keep that whole idea of the devil going, because you're seeing it as something that's totally disconnected from your own consciousness. It's hard to move my hand if I don't see it as connected to my body. But if I saw my hand as separate from my body, I couldn't move it. You see what I'm saying? So if I see the devil or anything else as being this external entity that's causing something, then I have no control over that. There's no way I can make a change in something that's not connected to me at all. So that's what makes this a challenging path. That's why people can be so excited about it when they first come in, and you watch their excitement go right over the cliff. Because they like hearing that they can create their reality. If it means I can manifest a car, I can manifest a house, I can manifest my soulmate, I can manifest the body that I want, I can create the money I've always wanted. But they don't want to accept that if you can create that through your consciousness, then everything that you are experiencing is coming through your consciousness, even the stuff you don't like. And that's where everybody goes, like you said, that's where everybody goes, oh no. But you won't have full power until you realize you're not a victim of the world you see. And that's the greatest gift that anybody could give you, even though at the beginning, I admit, at the beginning, that's the toughest idea of all, because you'll see how much you still run by your program. See, that's what happens at first. You are your program, and then all of a sudden you see, oh my God, I'm the one that's running this program. I'm the one that's clicking start. Right? You know what I'm saying? That's why relationships are so interesting, because they're like the start button. It's like you could have that program on your computer. As long as you don't click in on it, it never runs. But usually your relationships with other people, that is the start button. That is the button that makes you aware of your program. So even though you want to do it differently right now, you still get your buttons pushed. right now. And so be grateful for the opportunities that you get to be disturbed, because those are gifts that give you an opportunity to choose for your innocence. They give you an opportunity to actually see yourself differently. Yeah, I feel guilty right now. Wow. Would the truth want me to feel guilty? Would love want me to feel guilty? That's not the same as saying I don't make mistakes, and mistakes are not for correction. But am I really guilty? Have I really destroyed the universe? Have I really destroyed love? Does God hate me? You know, it's like it gets me in touch with the stuff that I'm telling myself, and then my physical reality witnesses it back to me if I believe that. And I've heard that thousands of times. And I'm so thankful for hearing that thousands of times because I know that I don't experience as much drama in my experience as I did before I started to work with that idea. It's just that when your spiritual power starts to come to you and you begin to spiritually awaken, you become less tolerant of minor intrusions of discomfort. Awakening spiritually doesn't mean that you suffer better and you suffer longer and more patience. It's just the opposite. You're totally impatient with crappy relationships. You become totally impatient with not knowing your abundance or your joy. You become impatient with not having the happiness. It's just the opposite from what people think. It's like when you begin to wake up spiritually, you don't want the crap like you used to. You can't take it like you used to. You can't suffer as long as you used to. And so you think it means you're getting worse because you're studying. And actually it means you're getting better because now you won't tolerate self-debasement. Now you won't tolerate you're not being recognized and appreciated. So then you get to the point that people who would make you feel guilty or attack you or shame you, and instead of you wanting to do what they say, you would say, oh, this is not a reflection of love coming back at me. This is not what a loving person would do. They would not be trying to shame me. So you would start to be repelled by the very things that used to manipulate you. That's where you're headed. But it won't take you as long to get to that peaceful place as it took to get you to the guilty. And that's the beauty of it. That correction doesn't take as long as it takes to create the problem to begin with, because you got the whole universe supporting your correction, but you have to screw yourself up by yourself.
That's creation.
you know what I'm saying? You know, the universe doesn't help you not love yourself. So if you want to do that, you have to really come up with all the scenarios and scripts and grievances on your own. But the minute you go, you know what, I've had enough. I'm ready to recognize my innocence. I'm ready to see my mistakes and allow them to be corrected. I'd rather be happy than be right. It's more important for me to have peace now than to be right. Then everything, the heavenly host, God, everything, whatever you want to call it, it will all rush to your assistance because it's just waiting for a little bit of willingness. Willingness for you to admit that you're not alone. Willingness for you to admit that maybe you are responsible for how you're feeling and it's not somebody else causing it now. Even if you were seemingly the victim to somebody when you were a child, you're a grown man now. There's no excuse anymore. You can't use that excuse. You can't use your childhood as an excuse. You can't use what the church taught you as an excuse. You can't use what your teachers taught you as an excuse now, because you are in the present moment. And in this present moment, you determine what you choose to believe and accept as true. So, I can't blame my father anymore. I can't blame my race anymore. I can't blame any of that stuff anymore. And sometimes I wish I could, but I'm too awake to pull it off at any kind of consistent level, even though sometimes I do it just for the fun of it. It's a problem because I'm a black man in America. That's why they're not going right for me. I know that's it right there. That's what does. You get a chance to get that poisonous feeling that comes with that. It feels real good because some poison tastes good. Because a lot of people die because they eat some sweet tasting poison. See what I'm saying? Like the Course says, if you really want to be conscious, you don't want to be able to be fooled in any form the poison comes in. The bitter poison, you go, it might not even take it, but it's that sweet poison that'll kill you the best. And that's what the Course calls our perception of special love. It's the sweet poison. It's that really good poison that we just can't wait to swallow. So I want the real deal. 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 I'll say it again. I teach best what I most need to learn.
Oh yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm here. So, would y'all acknowledge yourselves for hearing this much about your innocence tonight? I'm amazed at how quickly it goes. All right, so let's do the love offering, and then we'll get ready to go back out in the lab. Oh, the lab! The lab is waiting.
Special experience.
It's waiting.
Comes up. I'm responsible.
Yeah, and
That
I'm.
changes the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's not I am to blame. It's a very subtle difference between responsibility and blame, and you can kind of tell it more by the feeling that you have than an intellectual thing. If you're saying I'm responsible and you're feeling guilty and angry, you're blaming yourself. If you're truly taking responsibility in the correct perception, it lightens you, and you feel energized and you feel better. So that's the difference. If you go, oh, here I go again, doing this to myself one more time, I know I'm responsible. Like some people think taking responsibility means, especially in relationships, they think taking responsibility means I am responsible for allowing you to screw me up. That's not taking responsibility, but you hear that all the time. I'm responsible because I allowed this to be done to me. You're still blaming the other person and saying they did something to you. It's a very subtle difference, but you see people do it all the time on a spiritual path. You know, it's really about realizing that you made all the choices in that situation, and that you're the one that's always making the choices. And not to blame yourself, but to realize you can make another choice. That's what I like about the Course. It says, just admit you made the dream you don't like, and then don't try to make the one you do. Go, I'm willing to allow that dream to be created through me. I'm willing to allow my higher self to now be in charge. It's not about learning that I'm responsible so that I can get in charge better.
No.
It's me learning I'm responsible and then learning how to listen better.
It's actually a freedom for me
You know.
to know that I'm responsible. It's a little bit more of a freedom that I don't have to worry about this other person didn't do anything. And another thing you said to me on that same day was that, and to everybody, but it seemed to be just me, when they're doing something and it seems like they're doing it to you, just think about, when do you do that? When do I do that?
Well, it's always
When do I do that?
That's the cool part.
That
That's the
was
cool
so
part.
cool.
I've never had a
I do
person.
that all the time.
I've
What
never
you
had a
doing?
person accuse me of anything that they haven't done.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't ever had a person accuse me of anything that they haven't done, if they would be honest. Not one, whether it's anger or jealousy or attack, or it's not one thing a person can be upset with you about that if you didn't ask them to be really completely honest, have they had that feeling, emotion, or attitude before. And if they say they haven't, you know that they're in total denial. There's not a person in this room that hasn't lost their temper. There's not a person in this room that hasn't been upset about something. There's not a person in this room that hasn't felt afraid about something at one time in their life. There's not a person in this room that hasn't felt happy about something, or felt their heart open about something, or felt any feeling that you have or have ever had. Everyone else has too. And if you were to just accept that, 99% of your guilt would leave, as well as your inability to forgive. Because not being able to forgive always is a result of seeing someone as different from you. Even a murderer has acted out a thought that all of us have had at some level. All of us have had murderous anger, even if it was just swatting the fool out of a fly. You know what I'm saying? We've all felt that desire to destroy something that we thought was harmful or fearful to us. That's why we attack other people who do it so viciously. It is a reaction to our own desire to do that thing, or the fact that we have done that thing.
You know where I get in trouble, what I did today, is that someone's saying, well, can you believe what she did to me? Well, what I didn't tell her is she did the same thing to me 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? And I had to shut my mouth because I knew I'd lose a friend over that one. But it's just so interesting. Why, can you believe that she did?
But that was so powerful that you recognized it. That's why there was no need to say anything to her. Because it was about you seeing that connection. That was your healing. That's a beautiful thing. So that was your healing. And she'll get it one day. That's the other thing. Don't worry about it. everyone's going to get it. Everyone's going to get it in their own time, in their own way, but you don't need that time. You can choose to get it today. That's what I'd like to see happen to you. All right? All right? Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. It was an interesting evening today. Yeah. So
I was thinking, though, how did everyone that didn't come, because usually, let's be honest, there's more people, how did they get the word that the